Hi, I'm Taryn and welcome to Most Fashionable, crime and fashion-related true crime podcast. The theme of this season is house, and I'm talking about some of the most scandalous stories of fashion houses. This first episode is a little bit different. I'm not talking about one specific house. I'm talking about how World War II led to some of the most well-known fashion houses of today and what it took to get there. If you haven't listened to the podcast episode, go and listen to that because this brief kind of a deep dive will make more sense. While I was researching for the episode, I came across this article about the dressmakers of Auschwitz. I mentioned in the podcast that of the 2,700 garment firms that were in Berlin, only 150 of them survived during this time period. I haven't found clear information as to why or how they survived. I'm assuming that these firms were either very necessary or that the Nazis did not see them as competition, or maybe a bit of both. With this, I learned about Martha Fuchs. She was very skilled in sewing, and prior to the war, she owned her own salon. She was hired to run the upper tailoring studio at Auschwitz. At first, you might think, why was there a tailoring studio? And if there was one, maybe they were repairing the clothes worn by the Jewish prisoners. But no, of course they weren't, because of the Nazis' hatred of Jewish people. And maybe they were, but to my knowledge, they were not making clothes for Jewish people. Originally, Martha was hired as an au pair and to repair clothes for the wife of the Auschwitz commander, Hedwig Hose, the wife of Rudolf Hose. This turned into something bigger because I think Hedwig Hose saw opportunity to profit off of this, and Martha went on to hire dozens of women, and ultimately their lives were saved after the war. In 1944, there were 25 women that made it out because they worked in this tailoring studio. What's crazy to me is the fact that Nazis were ordering clothes directly from this tailoring studio in the concentration camp. I mentioned in the podcast episode that the Nazis set up organizations so that the clothes worn by the German Aryans would only be touched by Aryan hands. But yet, the wives of Nazis were showing up to the concentration camp to be fitted for custom garments designed and made by Jewish women. Not only were the Jewish prisoners making clothes for Nazi women, they would also go through the discarded clothing and other belongings of the Jewish people that arrived to the concentration camp. And then they would ship them off to German civilians. It was surprising, but not so surprising to learn about this information, because I feel like if you tell a certain group of people that they are above a certain group of people, a lot of those people within that group that are deemed higher are not going to want to do service work for other people. But it's crazy to me that all these systems were in play, all of this propaganda and all these beliefs were instilled in people just for the people that were supposed to assume it to the highest authority were not doing that. And we see that to this day. So there is a book that was published, I believe, a few years ago that talks more about this that I want to read, and I will put it in the description box. Thank you so much for supporting Most Fashionable Crime. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. See you next week.